On today's episode of An Echo of Glory, we talk about the win against Liverpool, Ange suits back, and Gary cracks 3.5 jokes.
Subscribe!
Welcome to another episode of An Echo of Glory. Joining me as always, Gary Diamond.
Good morning.
And Jake Robson.
Good morning.
Jake, I'll start with you. Good weekend?
I had a great weekend, but it's been soured by what James has told us. No, you're the numbers man normally, the stats guy, but I'm going to give you a stat. 82% of our viewers haven't subscribed to our channel.
Wow.
No.
What are we doing wrong?
I don't know. What are we doing wrong?
Well, you see all of this?
Yeah.
Yeah. It don't exist without subscribers. James in there is going to cut the power. He's going to turn the lights off, turn the cameras off, and that'll be that. So
subscribe, basically.
Basically. You're watching us anyway. Just hit
Press
subscribe.
the button. It really doesn't take long. Press the button.
Thank you.
No,
so,
thank
yes,
you.
I did have a good weekend. Did you have a good weekend? Gary, do you remember any of Saturday? Past 2 o'clock.
No, I've got to be honest. I didn't have a good weekend. I don't really see how we can see such an injustice that could have been so avoided, caused simply by human error, and it has such an impact on the outcome, and it just it leaves a bitter taste in the mouth. It leaves you feeling just a bit sour, and I'm struggling to really sort of get past it, if I'm honest.
We're going to talk about the Liverpool game very soon.
Well,
I thought
I'm not.
I thought we were having fun. Gary's brought the mood right.
I'm not talking about the Liverpool game. I'm talking about Les Dennis getting kicked off strictly. It's an absolute disgrace. What the judges were doing. I'm sorry, that's a disgrace. Okay, if anybody saw that dance-off final,
right,
they will know that Les Dennis should have stayed. Now, I know it's not Nikita's fault because it's not her fault. It's the judge's fault.
Right.
But any reasonable person will surely agree that the only possible solution here is to have the dance-off final again.
Yeah.
And Nikita shouldn't have a dance partner or music, okay? Because that's the way it should go. But look, in all honesty, Les is, he's from Liverpool, so I am, very much looking forward to Liverpool City Council issuing a statement imminently to explain that they'll explore the range of options available to sort this, and I'm sure the proud people of Liverpool will get petitions going imminently.
I didn't know you liked Strictly, Gaz.
No, I don't. I actually have never watched it. Couldn't care less. I had a fabulous weekend. Loved every second of it. Can't remember too much after 2 o'clock. Went to watch my team play. Had a great time. Yes, there was an injustice. Am I going to sit here and cry about it? Loved watching my team get another massive 3 points. Shoot me. I enjoyed it.
Okay, we got there in the end. I was really worried there that Gary had actually gone home after the Liverpool game, watched Strictly, and then watched the results.
I thought you were going to say I was worried that he then remembered it.
Sorry, you got choked up there. Okay, right. Gary doesn't watch Strictly and was delighted. Good. Club news. Actually, we're going to start with a bit of lost and found this week. I don't know if you've seen, there's been a bit of an issue, Tottenham-related issues this week. Start off with the good news. Ben Davies found his dog. Did you see this?
Lucky Ben.
If you're listening to us, I say this every week now, watch us. Watch us on YouTube. If you're on Spotify, press the button, make your screen bigger, you can watch us. On our screen here is a picture of Ben Davies put out a message saying our dog is missing by Selfridges. Please DM if you see her. Well, the good news is they found her.
Yeah, but you know what apparently happened was they took the dog to Selfridges and the dog went, nah, I'm not having this. Border shopping. Was found at the champagne bar, sipping champagne, eating oysters. So picked me up on the way out and they just forgot.
Is that what happens when you go to Selfridges?
Yeah, pretty much.
So Ben Davies' dog was found. What hasn't been found, and we saw this on our Echo's Twitter account, Paul Anderson, at Paul Anderson 149, a picture of some Spurs shirts that he found. Spurs family, I found this at Liverpool Street Station getting back from White Hart Lane around 8:30 p.m. Someone definitely dropped it in front of me, but the big crowds made it impossible to tell who. Twitter, do your thing, and now the Echo of Glory podcast trying to do our thing. Paul Anderson has found these Spurs kits that somebody's bought, spent looks like £100 on, and has dropped them. So we're going to put this on our YouTube feed, of course. We've posted it on Twitter. If anybody knows whose this is, please get in touch with the show or at Paul Anderson 149.
And I just want to say, Paul, I think it's a great thing what you've done, but I'm very disappointed that to block out the credit card number, you've gone for red. What were you thinking?
Never red.
What were you thinking?
Never red.
And also, if it doesn't get found, then Paul's got a free shirt.
He has got a free shirt, but I reckon the Spurs community will do its thing. So onto the club news itself, starting with the women's team. 2-1 defeat to Chelsea on Sunday afternoon, late afternoon. I thought they were really good. I watched the game. We always lose to Chelsea. They've lost every game against Chelsea, but they lost 2-1. It was a good performance. They actually had the most shots against any team have had against Chelsea in a decade. I think what it showed was that it's not just the senior men's team, and as we'll come to the junior men's teams that are playing this new style. This new style is lending itself across all formats at the club.
Yeah, it was great. I mean, the game was on TV, and so I was able to have it on, and I was really impressed with the football that the women played, particularly in the first half, where they really took the game to Chelsea, and they might have found it a bit of an injustice to go in at half-time 1-0 down. It was a good Chelsea goal, but they really took the game to Chelsea, and this is without their best player, Beth England, by the way, who's out for a period of time. First game under the new manager. But the style of football that they played, I thought was, it lent itself to what will hopefully be a really positive season for them, and very different to what happened last season.
Yeah, and the under-18s won 2-1 at West Brom. They've won their last 4. They're now 4th in the league. The under-21s Monday night beat Chelsea 4-2. They are 6 from 6 plus 18 goal difference, sticking the table up in our screens here again. Find somewhere where you can watch the show. You can see these images on our lovely screens. And hit subscribe, as producer James says. 6 wins out of 6, 18 points, 21 scored, 3 conceded. Absolutely flying.
Yeah, and there's I spotted something about the under 21s and the men's first team, and that is that of the 21 goals that the under 21s have scored, 4 of them have been in the 85th minute onwards, which is a very high percentage of goals correlative to the time of the game. The Spurs men's team have scored 4 goals from the 83rd minute onwards out of the 17 that we've scored. I think it's 17. So you're looking at sort of 20%, 4% of goals across those two teams being scored at that late stage of the game. And I don't think that can be coincidence. That's got to be something, about the way that they're playing, and eventually it just wears teams down.
Well, it's definitely fitness as well.
Yeah.
Motto of that story, don't leave early.
Well, Ange said in his post-match conference after Liverpool, which I want to come to a bit later, he made a comment about how they've all been conditioned to have so much more in the tank at the end, and we're seeing that. We're clearly seeing it then across all teams, because even the women's team had chances at the end. They didn't fade and wilt. I mean, Chelsea could have scored more, yes.
They got a lucky goal, the women's team. I mean, there was a bad keeping error. But
they nearly nicked it.
Going.
And they nearly nicked it at the end. So despite the defeat, a good weekend for the club overall. I just want to spare a thought for Roma fans. Something I saw online last night. They're thinking of swapping Mourinho for Conte. Imagine that.
The thing is, though,
we've been there.
Yeah, but they'll be fine with that, won't they? It's like I was saying this to somebody the other day. You can't see Conte getting another job in the Premier League, but you can see him still.
Oh God, yeah.
But I also think his stock is probably still really high in Italy as well. So
like Jose's.
Yeah. Great. Good luck to him.
Yeah. Right. So the men's team had a big game Saturday, and we're going to talk about it. But the first thing I want to talk about is Ange's big game suit. He wore it again.
Here to stay.
All right, but is he wearing...
He looked better this time, didn't he?
He did look better.
But why? I couldn't put my...
Maybe there was no red around him. At Arsenal, he was like... It just didn't look nice.
He looked a bit more... less rushed, didn't it? It looked like he sort of... It fit him a bit.
Was it the same suit?
I mean... I don't know.
Maybe he took one look at last week and went, that's not for me, and had it tailored better.
Maybe that's what it was.
I thought it was just prescient. I thought he wore it as a mark of respect for the depth of the injustice of the game.
So he knew.
There is nothing that this man can't do. There's nothing he doesn't know. And if he'd let us all know beforehand, perhaps we would have all worn black armbands as well. I don't know.
Right, we'll come to all of that, Gary. Don't worry. I know you're chomping at the bit. But I am going to start at the very beginning of the match, which is what we like to do. And press that button there, and on our screen is the starting 11. Vicario in goal, back four as always, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Udogie, Sarr and Basuma in front of them, and then the only contentious decision, if you can call it that, Kulusevski, Maddison and Richarlison on the left, Son up front. I think it was a case of will it be Richarlison, will it be Solomon, and if...
Well, once Johnson was out.
Once Johnson was out, of course, sorry. Will it be Richarlison? Will it be Solomon? And then whatever happens there, will Son play down the middle? I think we're all delighted that Son played down the middle. But were you surprised to see Richarlison start over Solomon?
Well, actually, you know how sometimes, depending on where you get your team news from, sometimes the formation changes. It comes out straight away. And actually, the first thing I saw was it had Richarlison through the middle and Son on the left. And I thought to myself, okay, fine. He's brought Richarlison back. That's the way he's going to go. But then when the game started, it was clear that wherever I got that from was just talking rubbish.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I think... When I saw the team, I think we've now got back to the point where you can name 10 out of the 11 players, and we haven't been there for a while. No.
Do you think so? I think you can almost name 11 out of 11.
Well, yeah.
If Johnson's fit, and obviously you've got Benson Cord to come back in, I'd have him ahead of Sarr. But let's assume Benson Cord's out. I think at the minute, if Johnson's fit, I think it's Kulusevski, Maddison, Johnson, and then Son up front.
I always felt though that Richarlison would be an Ange type player because what he is prepared to do is run a lot. And if you, as a minimum for Ange, you've got to. If you don't run for him, you're not playing for him.
I think you need to have more for Ange. I'm not sure he's good enough, I have to say. I thought he did. Again, I keep saying this with him. I think he did okay, and I know he popped up with a nice assist, and he had a couple of chances, and I think he set up the goal for Son that was disallowed. Just don't think. We've got one player up front in Son who I obviously love, but I don't think his short play is amazing. And I think Richarlison is the same. And I just think it breaks down too much with him on the ball.
I think the one thing I would say for Richarlison is it would have been quite easy for him to have had a strop finding out that he's playing, but he's not playing up front. And now suddenly he's had a season behind Harry Kane. And now he's got a season seemingly behind Son, and it would have been quite easy for him to have a strop, but his attitude is always spot on, and whatever you think about his technical ability and whether it's good enough or not, he went in, he did a job, he got a very good assist for the goal, and I can't help but like the guy, honestly.
I like him. I'm not saying.
I think managers like him because I think he's got that mentality that he's going to give his all the time, and he's better than just he tries hard, but he might not be a top. I get what you're saying, a top player, but there's something about him. He'll run a lot. He will give his all for the team, and I think he must train really well because he keeps getting picked.
I'm sure all of that is correct.
I think again, I always kind of say this: if Ange is picking him, there must be a good reason for it.
Because Johnson was injured and he didn't want to pick Solomon.
Well, why didn't he want to pick Solomon?
Okay, look,
Solomon's been good, but yet Richarlison is still here getting picked to play.
When they went down to 9, and of course we'll come to that. I know it was difficult. Again, we'll talk about it. They packed the box. Didn't see him. I think he missed Perisic crossing the ball to him. I just didn't see him. I'm not sure he is a 9, I think he might be better out wide.
That's where he's playing.
Yeah, and even I'm not going to spend this podcast dissing Richarlison. I just think we could probably upgrade out there.
Well, Solomon, we have done, but Solomon was on the bench and Johnson was injured.
Yeah, okay.
So
anyway, don't know. The jury's still out for me on what he is, Richarlison. A willing runner, yes. Absolute great attitude. Don't know. Not sure he fits the Ange ball. But let's talk about what happened on the day because you can't ignore it. You can't. You can go on Twitter and they're still ranting and raving about it, and everybody's ranting and raving about it. Not just Spurs, not just Liverpool fans. Everyone's had their say. So the controversies begin with a Jones red card. What I will say about this game, we know what happened. Liverpool had 2 players sent off. They had the disallowed goal. For me, from where I was sat, and I don't want to be that person who says, "Oh well, I went to the game. I must know more than you." No. Well, what I'm saying is, I went to the game. I saw these things once, and when I saw these things once, I thought I couldn't see the Jones red clearly. It was at the other side of the pitch. I didn't know at all what had happened until you saw Bissouma staying on the floor. You think it must be bad. So then you see it, and I've seen it, and I think it's a red. At the time, didn't know. Jota's 2 yellows. They're 2 yellows. In any game, they're 2 yellows. The Diaz offside, I thought it was offside. My dad, who sits the next block down, thought it was offside. I spoke to a bloke who sits in the east stand and a bloke who sits in the north stand. All said their initial reaction was it was offside. Let's talk about this Udogie foul before Liverpool equalised. Well, that wasn't a foul. From where I was sat, looked like a foul. The referee has one view. I actually think the referee had a good game. And you may say because Spurs benefited. No, I think the referee had a good game. What has happened since is we've slowed everything down, and you can get different results by slowing these things down. So whilst I fully get that Liverpool are so angry with the Diaz goal. I think that goal has clouded the entire game and the entire referee performance, and I think that's unfair.
I think, I know I've had a bit of a joke and had a bit of a dig, but the reality of it is that was an injustice. Okay, we've never seen anything like that. A failure in communication, human error, and
well, we've been on the end of goals at Old Trafford that weren't.
We've been on the end of all sorts. We don't need to get into it because it's not relevant.
Do you mean in the VAR world?
The VAR world, we've never seen such a breakdown of communication like that, where they had the right decision, but somehow between them got it wrong. I mean, that's just catastrophic in any world, right? We've had some terrible decisions. Every team's had terrible decisions. You're not going to find a fan of any team that has said that their team hasn't been the victims of a terrible decision somewhere that has impacted the result of a game and felt a huge injustice. But this does feel like it's on a bit of a different level, right?
Yep.
Because it could have so easily been avoided.
Of course.
And I can understand entirely the anger from all sides about such a big decision, and it has potentially impacted the outcome of a game. I'm not sure that against 10 men and just 30 minutes in, you could say that Liverpool have got a draw or won or whatever. But it's affected the course of the game quite dramatically, and I understand the anger behind that. What I can't get on board with is the picking apart of every other incident that occurred beyond that. Because every other incident is what I would term in Formula One as a racing incident. It happens in every race. It happens in every match. You see in every match players who consistently foul and finally get booked for the one that probably isn't the booking, but the one before was, right?
Which happened to Jota.
Which happened to Jota,
yeah.
okay? You see it all the time. You see corners given that weren't corners, and they score from that corner.
Arsenal had 2 corners at the end of that North London derby.
And if they'd have scored from it, we'd be screaming, it wasn't a corner. They're racing incidents is what I term it, right? And you can't pick apart a game of football like this. And as for Jones, with the best will in the world, I don't really see, people say he won the ball. For me, actually, I think...
Well, I'll put it on the screen here.
Bissouma's clearly won the ball. Bissouma's got his foot on the ball. Jones has gone over the top of the ball. Now, the first thing that anybody says is gone over the top of the ball. It doesn't matter that he's caught a little bit of the ball. His foot has ended up halfway up Bissouma's shins with his studs going right into his shin. How is it not a sending off? And the only reason that this is a debate is 2 things. One, Gary Neville, for some reason, has said in commentary before the Diaz issue, and I think a lot of the momentum for all of this is built from Gary Neville sort of really vehemently saying this isn't a sending off. If that was on a United player, I guarantee you Neville would be saying that's a sending off. In no world of football today, in the past different, today in no world is that not a sending off. It's a sending off.
And we're not saying that Jones has gone out to hurt Bissouma. Absolutely not.
If now the law is it's only a sending off if the intent is there, you'll never see a sending off because players don't go out onto the pitch these days with the intent of injuring another player. It doesn't happen, right? But that's not the point. The intent isn't relevant. The relevance is he's mistimed the tackle and it has seriously endangered Bissouma. If he ends up with a broken leg, right, and he could very easily have done, people would be saying, well, it's an absolute red card.
Yeah.
But why has it got to be a broken leg for it to be a red card?
I think a lot of those was it Gary Neville and was it Jamie Redknapp I think that was on the TV. I think what's maybe got a bit blurred is the fact that there's a couple of things. One is some people forget, as you said, that there doesn't need to be intent. You can be out of control without meaning it. And I think the other thing that's been lost in terms of the ex-players is that they are saying, the fact is, by the letter of the law, it's also a red card, by the way. And I think they are perhaps saying that it shouldn't be a red card. The law should be changed so that that kind of incident shouldn't be a red card. I don't think anyone, if you read the laws or the rules of football and the referee, it is a red card. And I think that's where people have got confused and that's where it's got lost.
Where do you stand on this image? Again, we've put it up on our screens. Jake. There was complaints that the first thing that Simon Hooper saw when he went to the screen was this. And that's in his head, that's the first thing he sees. So he's automatically thinking red. They then showed him the different angles. There's complaints that, well, if you show him that straight away, it's a red card. For me, I don't care whether they show him an episode of 40 Towers and then show him that. It doesn't matter when he sees that. He needs to see it. It doesn't matter whether it's first or last.
Yeah, because ultimately, the rules are if you do that, it's a red card, so it doesn't matter when he's seen it. And I think the other thing is actually Jamie Carragher made the point on the telly last night that in the UK that the ref is being asked to go over to have a look, to be shown that he might have made a mistake. He's not going over there to be asked if he wants to be asked anything else. That's what he's being told by his assistants. We think you've made a mistake. Do you want to go and see this? And so therefore he is being shown. They're going to show him why they think he has made a mistake, and that's why they showed him that.
I think Dermot Gallagher also said on, and by the way, incidentally, last night I think both Frank Lampard and Jamie Carragher both went, yeah, I mean, you can see why it's been sent off. So actually they weren't disagreeing necessarily with the sending off. And Dermot Gallagher said of this freeze frame that it's shown because the outcome of the action is what referees are interested in, and the referee needs to see that because they need to see where the impact is, and the impact is well above the ankle, leading with the studs and halfway up his shin, and that's what the ref sees. And by the letter of the law, as you say, Jake, that is a sending off. So it doesn't matter if you show that first, last, or in what sequence. You could see the action first and then show the subsequent contact at the end. It's still a sending off. Out
of interest, Jake, you unfortunately weren't there on Saturday. You were working, so you've seen this on the TV. Watching that live, could you see? No. So that's where VAR's done a great job there.
And also, they showed last night that the view that the ref couldn't. It's not his fault. He was.
He was behind. There were bodies
behind Jones. Couldn't see.
VAR's done its job, and I think if it was the other way around. I'm sorry, Basuma, you've got to go.
I think this was probably the least controversial of all the decisions.
Well, let's do another controversial decision. We're going to fast forward about 8 minutes to this moment, which is the Diaz offside goal. By the way, what a finish. I have to say. Yeah. Unbelievable finish. Again, in the ground, my first reaction was, he's off. I actually said he's off. The moment Salah passed it, I went, he's off.
Yeah, so
the linesman has one view, and he puts his flag up after the ball has gone in. I don't know anyone. I've not spoken to anyone in the ground who didn't think it was off. I saw Darren Lewis on Twitter say, we knew straight away. I'm assuming Darren was in the press box. I'm sorry, Darren, you didn't.
And also, I don't know if you do know, the press box is about this side, but this far down on the other side, where he will be sitting, where the newspaper guys sit. There's no way he could have seen that.
It's interesting because I was going to say, Army Stopper, probably more or less just about in line with that, and I said straight away that's offside, straight away. So, I think the point that we're making is that there's no fault attributed to the linesman here. The linesman's done his job, and by the way, without the invention of VAR, the goal would have been disallowed, and that would have been that, right? But the linesman's done his job, and again, it's one of those where it just shows how difficult it is to be a linesman. Lord knows that Spurs have been on enough of the wrong end.
But every club has.
Every club has. Every club. The problem comes with the procedure and the protocol that subsequently followed on from this. And that's where this all falls apart, because you can forgive the linesman giving offside. What you can't forgive is that VAR is in place to prevent these errors. And in this instance, it's not even the VAR that has failed. It's the people operating.
Yeah, the communication wasn't there. We haven't heard the audio yet. There's talk the audio may come out, so we can't really speculate what did and what didn't happen. One thing that's interesting that did happen and hasn't really been mentioned, and it could have been an error, in the stadium, they put up the checking possible offside, checking goal for possible offside, which they do, and then the goal was given and Spurs restarted. About 10 seconds after the restart, and for another 45 to 60 seconds, on the screen, that it came back.
Yeah.
And I said to my son and my mate David, who I was with, I said, the screen's broken because that's come back up.
Yeah.
What normally happens when there's a goal, I've normally got my phone on me and I'm checking, and I've got people at work saying, oh, this might happen, this is offside, it's onside. I actually ran out of battery on Saturday, so I turned my phone off to save battery.
VAR comms did as well.
That's 3 jokes from you. Can we clip those up, James? So I didn't really I didn't know any of this. I didn't even know that goal was controversial until I got in the car on the way home. Normally, like anyone, you're all over it. So it seemed to me odd that it'd come up on the screen. But I didn't really think anything of it. I just assumed that was an error.
I just assumed they were trolling the Liverpool fans.
Or trolling the Liverpool, who, by the way, took a long time to realise that goal was disallowed. They were celebrating for a very long time.
Apparently, they could see it was onside from their end.
I'm not having that as a joke. Still 3 jokes.
That's harsh.
Anyway, my point is, I don't know, and I'm speculating. We've got to be careful. I don't want to. We don't know what happened. I just wonder whether they were frantically seeing whether they could bring this back. And on that, I'll start with you, Jake. If Ange or Ryan Mason or someone on that bench had gone, oh, God, that's a goal. Let Liverpool walk a goal in. How would you have felt if we'd done that?
I mean, you would. I wouldn't have minded, to be honest. Because there's a couple of reasons. One is it could set a precedent going forward that maybe that would come back to do us a favour at some point. And the other thing is, I kind of subscribe more to this idea that the protocol that the referees follow means that you can't, once players moved on, they can't go back. And actually, say for example the refs had decided to break the protocol and it was obviously disadvantaged us, I wouldn't have minded.
Of course, it would have been Spurs that protocol was broken on.
Well, with something like that, it's not even contentious. They've made a mistake. I'm one of these people. That's why I'm not really anti the VAR process or the having VAR, because I'd rather the right decision we get to the right decision in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it would have been on Ange or Ryan Mason to highlight it, but let's say in the following sort of 30 seconds of action where nothing really happened, the fourth official turns around to the bench and says, guys, there's been a monumental cock-up, unprecedented, but this was 100% onside. Now, protocol suggests that we, the refs, cannot bring it back at this point, but do you want to take this opportunity to do the right thing? And they put the ball firmly in Ange's court. As a Tottenham fan and wanting our club to be shone in the best light, and as a football fan and wanting the integrity of the game to be so, if Ange had at that point said, there's a clear error here, Liverpool get the goal, I would have been, number one, proud of the team, number two, praying that we go on anyway and stuff them. But where I've got an issue is the idea that after the game is finished, there is any possibility of it being replayed. It's done, and there is no precedent for that. Okay, it needs to be done. If it was ever going to be done, it needed to be done in literally the 30 to 40 seconds after, when they had it up on the screens, when they. It seems as though they were aware that a colossal error had been made. And if they had have addressed it to Ange, and Ange had said, yes, fine, I would have absolutely, and I think any football fan and Spurs fan would have supported that. But not a replay. Hell no.
Oh, God. And there's been some talk of, Arsenal did it against Sheffield United, I think, 99. I'm sorry.
It's their players.
Their players decided to
Spurs
score.
are not at fault here.
Not at fault.
It needs to be made clear. Nothing that happened on the weekend is the fault of Tottenham Hotspur.
No.
Spurs did nothing wrong. We played a game of football within the rules of the game, and the decisions that came. We had decisions against us. Udogie got a booking and a free kick, which they scored from, which to me wasn't a booking or a free kick. But again, it's a racing incident, and it's part of the game, right? It happens.
This is what I said. This is what I said. The Diaz goal has clouded the entire game for them. Everything was against them, which is nonsense. Let's just rattle through the last of the red cards. No, that's not it. On the screen, that is. You can't really see it here. I think Udogie, again, in the ground, is tripped by Jota, who was, by the way, on a warning because he'd fouled Basuma.
That's what the point is.
He'd fouled Basuma like 3 minutes before.
Yeah. He tripped himself. Well, I've never seen that before.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. He's running at X miles an hour, and he's got the tiniest little clip.
What it was Jota. It was a complete accident.
Yeah.
But he definitely touched him.
Okay.
But the issue is, again, Jota has come on and he has made 3 fouls in the space of 5 minutes, and each 3 of them were on turnover balls, turnover possessions, when we were trying to gain an advantage in springing on them.
And here's just an image of the second one, just to make it look nice.
And Jota has come onto the pitch either under his own, volition or under clear instructions that when Spurs turn it over, let's stop them in their tracks.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, again, the anger here has got to be, from a Liverpool point of view, towards Jota, because you've been booked 60 seconds before. Udogie's then pressed you, mugged you, won the ball. don't dive in and clip him. Whether the first booking is a booking or not, at that point is immaterial.
Yeah.
What's material is you're a professional footballer, your team is down to 10 men, and you've been irresponsible in your action in bringing the man down. Udogie got booked last week against Saka in the 15th minute. He got booked today last week in the first half. As a fullback whose job is to make challenges, he's managed to go through the rest of those two games in tough circumstances against some of the best wingers in the world and not get himself sent off. Yeah. Jota couldn't last a minute between bookings. Yeah. Sorry, be angry at him.
I think Klopp was actually. Klopp's got a lot to be possibly angry about, but he certainly wasn't. I think he was angry with Jota, you could see. Normally he throws his arms up. Anyway, let's talk about the game itself and the win. It's a great win. Possibly the edge taken off it a little bit because of the Liverpool statement, everyone telling us it's our fault that they lost and all that sort of stuff. But we've got 3 points against Liverpool for the first time since 2017. I thought, watching the game, the first 30 minutes, 25 minutes were excellent to watch. I think Liverpool shaded it. They had that chance with Vicario, made 2 saves. When they went down to 10, I've thought about this, and I may have changed my mind a little bit. At the time, I thought, if I went down to Liverpool and said, actually, I've been told you've got to take a player off and play with 10, I think they'd have chosen Curtis Jones. I don't think it changed the way they played. They were here to counter us. But the more I think of it, and the more I've listened to a few Liverpool fans, he's been integral to what they're doing this season because they're missing Henderson and they need that sort of protector. But I don't think him going off changed the way they played. They played the same way with 10. I think we'd have beaten them with 10. They go down to 9, and I've seen Spurs fans say Spurs were poor today. I don't think we were poor. I think we played poorly against 9, and people are seeing the last 20 minutes and putting that to the whole performance. It was not easy to play against 9. At all. They just funneled 8 outfield players into the penalty area, and we didn't really have an answer to that.
Yeah, I think anyone that says that we weren't good in that game may well have a point, but the fact is, as you said, you're not going to play against 9 every week. It's completely a very unique set of circumstances.
Which they probably wouldn't have trained.
Which they wouldn't have... nobody's training to play against 9. It doesn't worry me in the slightest that it took us a while. I mean, listen, obviously we were very lucky to get that goal right at the end. And I wouldn't even say we deserved a goal, really, because from what we created, we didn't really create any clear-cut chances. No. Alisson didn't make any worldy saves sort of late on. So I can't even say that we deserved the goal. But the fact that we won in the end, and the fact that we got... I'm not bothered that it came how it came. I just don't see that being a problem going forward. And also, the other last home game before that, Sheffield United... wouldn't say it was similar in a way, but
they just had 11 of them.
They just had 11 of them, and you looked at it and you thought, well, actually, we actually played better in that game. We created a few more chances, but what did we do in both of those games? I'm sorry if I'm jumping the gun. We stuck it out.
I say Sheffield United had 11 of them. They did actually keep McBurney up front before he was sent off. It's probably easy to play against 9 when they're bothered to attack you and will leave spaces. Fair play to Liverpool. They absolutely stuck in, and they should be proud of the way they stuck in. But it wasn't easy.
I think the whole game is not a game on which I think you can judge either Spurs or Liverpool because, we were talking about with some excitement about the prospect of the game last week, and we all agreed it was going to be. I think everybody was looking forward to what should have been a fantastic spectacle, and the first 20 minutes was high class, full throttle football, and it was a really, really good match. And I agree with you. I think Liverpool shaded it. Does it bother me that they shaded the first 20 minutes? Not really. I think Spurs under Ange have generally started a little bit slowly and felt their way into games. Yeah. So, I think the first 20 minutes was a little bit of, we're playing an extraordinarily good team, by the way. I thought they were far better than Arsenal, I've got to be honest. And I think, watching Liverpool, I'd be surprised if they didn't push for second or even, push City all the way. But, I just feel as though we would have grown into the game, as we have done in every game this season. I think it could have been a great contest. You mentioned when they went down to 10, they played the same way. When you've got the pace of Salah and Douglas and Luis up front, Luis Diaz, you can afford to sort of sit in a little bit more. This wasn't the front foot aggressive pressing Liverpool that we've seen in the past, winning the ball in the final third and then quickly scoring. They were sort of trying to win it a bit deeper and play, get their wingers in, which is where the Diaz goal came from. When you look at it again, and it's what they were trying to do. When you've got that kind of pace, why not do that? I mean, it's such a weapon. But again, I agree with what Jake was saying. When they went down to 9, yeah, they did what any professional team should do. They sat in, they tried to get the point, very hard to break down. And there's a stat as well, by the way, about teams that have gone down to 10 men. And I think only 2 goals have been scored in open play so far this season against teams that have got 10 men.
Yeah, often it might be late in a game, but it's not easy. I just put a picture of the Son goal here. We've talked about Richarlison. Just want to quickly get your thoughts. Is that it now? Is he the 9?
Son is the 9, and I said it last week. Not the Arsenal goal that he scored, the first one.
Similar.
Not what we thought was Son's game was about. We saw him as a bit more of a, as we said, a bit more of a dribbler, maybe getting on the end of stuff. He's made another of those diagonal runs. You know, this is a proper striker's goal.
It is.
And he's now done it 2 weeks in a row.
What a pass from Maddison, by the way. He sent Gomez. Gomez was like twisted up, didn't know where the ball was. But not only that, if you watch the replay, completely foxes Alisson, who comes into a position where he really didn't want to be, which made it easier for Richarlison to knock it across to Son. Anyway.
Well, and also, I think he's a really, really good player, Solomon. But I'm not sure he's got that pass, that cross in his locker. And that is the kind of thing that I think Richarlison, I've said this before, off the cuff is when he really comes into his own. When he doesn't have too long to think about what he's doing. It was like, right, ball in. Almost when he beats one man and then has a second to think, that's maybe, or sometimes when he's one-on-one with the goalie, there's a bit too much to think about.
The quicker the better.
The quicker the better. And maybe that's sort of the Brazilian in him. That's how he's kind of been brought up with really kind of quick fire football. I mean, what a cross!
It's a lovely ball.
It was a lovely ball.
Well, let's go to post match because obviously the celebration police are out. Here's Ange in that suit. I think it's a different suit. Anyway,
I think the jacket might be a bit bigger. That's definitely blue, by the way, because we were talking at the Arsenal game. Was he wearing black or was he wearing? That is definitely blue. Maybe he's got a home and away suit. Imagine that.
Maybe.
Can anybody see what the pin is? What's that?
I can't.
A lot of people are wearing it.
It was a charity thing this week. Okay. They were all wearing it. I can't remember what it was for. Like I say, celebration police are out in force. Thoughts on this? Basuma being handed his baby. It was very much post-season vibes, but I loved it. It's just showing if you're happy at work, it makes life so much better, and the players seem so happy. I didn't really look. Had it been Arsenal, we'd probably all been digging at them. But it's great to see from where we've come in the last 3-4 years to see the bond that this man has clearly built at the club so quickly.
I found it really interesting.
By the way, the deep breath means he's going long.
No, it means I'm sort of thinking at the same time. But I found it interesting last week what Jamie Carragher said about Liverpool and the managers and the adulation that Liverpool
they're a managers' club.
They're a managers' club, and the adulation and you know, and there's no sort of player power at Liverpool as a consequence because the players know that the manager holds all the power. And Spurs got a lot of criticism for the way we celebrated against Sheffield United and Liverpool. I defy any club to win in those fashions and not celebrate. But more than that, you know, a lot of these celebrations, a lot of people have sort of been saying as well about, it's a bit embarrassing that we're heralding Ange so early. He hasn't really done anything yet. You know, we're going too soon. We're only at the same point as we were last season with Conte as manager, really, in terms of points. I can't get on board with this because I think here we have a manager who is very clearly going to be at the club for 3 or 4 years. He is building the club at all levels. We've discussed the similarity in the women's football even, and the youth football coming through, the way they're playing, the style they're playing. There is clearly a philosophy that is being implemented throughout the club. This is the guy. And now, whether or not he fails or succeeds isn't really the point at this moment. The point is, you know, this is the guy that we, the fans, should be getting behind more than any other, more than any individual, more than any player. This is the guy. This isn't the Harry Kane team anymore, or any other team. This is the Ange Postecoglou club, and I've got no issues at all with the Spurs fans singing his name and really getting behind it. And the other thing is, people are saying, you know, we're celebrating too early. It's a bit embarrassing. Well, again, on this, why not embrace the good vibe? Enough of us, you know, football fans, we go through such hard times and see such crap so often that when it is good and the vibe is good, why not get on board with that?
I agree with you. I was listening to A View from the Lane, excellent Spurs pod, and I think it was Charlie Eccleshare said, It's so hard in the Premier League now to win anything. I know we get laughed at trophies, Warra Trophy. It's so hard to win anything. So football now is becoming more than ever for a lot of clubs about moments. He was actually linking it to VAR ruining goals. But in the wider thing, football is becoming about moments. And if you can't enjoy these moments, winning again, being unbeaten, beating Liverpool at home, loving watching your players, having a good vibe, then what's the point?
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, football is all about the moments, and I can think of many Spurs moments that I almost put above, watching us lift the league.
Yeah, I shared Saturday with my son. That's an incredible moment.
That's what it's about. But in terms of the vibe that is going on at Tottenham and whether we're getting ahead of ourselves, I sort of think this. There is something positive going on at the moment, and you can see it in the unity of the players, the unity and the connection that they've very quickly built, the team's built with the fans. And clubs have achieved success off the back of a unified, teams have achieved success on the back of a unified club. Leicester rode the crest of a wave for a full season. Arsenal very quickly had a feel-good factor at the beginning of last season and really rode the crest of that wave, and it took them very, very far. I'm not saying we're going to win the league, and we may well fall short of winning the league. But if we think about what people expected of us, no pundit had us in the top 4 at the beginning of the season. Now everybody's saying it'll be a failure to not finish in the top 4. Spurs fans were saying we'd get relegated without Harry Kane. Grow up, right? But look where we are. So even if we fall short, have we failed? No, I don't think so. I think it's the direction of the club is really good and positive.
I think that's the point, isn't it? From where we thought we would be. We've talked about this a bit before. From where it felt like we were at the end of last season, over the summer, at the beginning of this season, where we thought we might be after 6 or 7 games. Look where we are. I mean, that's what it is, isn't it? That's why everyone's so happy. Plus 2 last minute winners. That's also
you ride off that. It's fumes.
As we said after the Sheffield United game, if we win that game 2-1, second goal 70th minute, I don't think Bissouma's bringing his kids on the pitch. The other thing is that felt very much that Bissouma and stuff. That's very much in the moment. I haven't seen too many of the dressing room scenes, that kind of stuff that we'd seen from other clubs posted on social media. But it hasn't been really squeezed out.
No, but Liverpool got criticised or abused a few years ago for that. Drew 2-2 at home to West Brom, and Klopp made them go. And
it's all Klopp about building. When he was building the connection and everything,
and it's worked.
And it looked cringy to every other fan of every other club. But they are so unified.
Who cares what other people think?
Exactly. They're so unified and so united in what they're trying to do and so behind Klopp. Yeah. Why should we not do the same? And you're not a Spurs fan if you're not thinking we're gonna drop the ball at Luton on the weekend. Of course you're not, and we may well do, right? But it doesn't detract from the fact that after 8 games of the season, if you would have said to me, 8 games into the season, imagine that we lose to Luton, but 8 games into the season, you've taken 17 points and you've played Arsenal, Liverpool, and United.
People would have given us 7 to 9.
Exactly. So everything's going in the right direction. We have a right to enjoy it. We have a right to feel positive.
Well, and that's the other thing, is that it can very quickly turn. And I don't think this will happen, but we could lose the next 5 games, and then we'll be glad. We'll be glad that we celebrated the Liverpool game, because 5 games later we haven't won. As I said, I don't think that'll happen. The other thing is that the point you make, the vibes kind of point, is that starting the season like this, as you said, it can really take us to. We can really jump on to the next level, and if vibes are part of it, we're riding that wave. It's absolutely fine. A team like Chelsea would have killed for some vibes after the first 4 or 5 matches.
And it's not like I think we're on the cusp of getting a dog and calling it victory, right? So I think we're
that was win.
No, but we're not going to call it win.
Oh, I see. Sorry, I thought we were talking about them.
I was talking about that. We're not going to get a dog and call it victory. We're not going to those levels, right? We're just enjoying the moment.
Right. Sorry. Okay.
You might get a dog and call it Ange, though.
Yeah. Do you know what? I'm thinking of getting a dog. I want to get a Rottie, and I could call it Ange. That's a great idea.
Australian Labradoodle, mate.
No,
Australian Labradoodle.
You've got a lovely dog, but I want a Rottweiler.
Anyway,
yeah.
Talking of the Aussie, just want to go back to a little bit to what we talked about last week. When you said, if it wasn't last week, it was the week before, about how Ange, the way we play, if they make mistakes, it's on him. I just want to read something from his post-match conference with Ben Haynes and the guys on Spurs Play. Talking about the way we played. It's wanting the ball when no one else wants it. It's playing in tight areas. It's being prepared that I'm going to make a mistake here that could cost my team, but I'm going to persist. That's what we said. This is the way we are going to play. It's risk and reward. And with that, I'm going to drop some stats on you, which I know you like, but I just have to find them to talk amongst yourselves.
You really like them. I think the thing that it was clear to me that he thinks that way was when, as I mentioned it last week, when we saw in the Arsenal game, even after they got nicked in possession, didn't they, Maddison? And they just weren't afraid to carry on.
But it works at both ends. And one thing we did on Saturday was routinely press Liverpool. And the two chances they had when Vicario made the double save, I actually remember saying, "What are you doing, Maddison?" He literally was chasing like a dog chasing a wasp. But it didn't need to do it, but that's the way they're playing. And I just want to bring some numbers up from a Liverpool perspective, or Alisson in particular. Saturday, his passing accuracy was 63.8%, which is his lowest of the season. Against Villa, his passing accuracy was 97%. Now, I know a lot of his passes are short, and that brings up his number, but 63% is low for Alisson. And what also happened on Saturday was he failed with 5 passes in his own half. That is the most he's ever done in a Premier League game. Previously, his most was 3, actually early this season against Wolves.
And there's only one reason for that.
Well, I brought this up, and someone who's an analysis guy said to me, well, it's because they were down to 10 and they were down to 9. It actually didn't happen when they were down to 9. It did happen when they were down to 10. He said to me, oh, well, it's easier to press when the opposition have got 10. Nah, nonsense. We pressed. Are you saying this happened because of the way we pressed them?
100%.
I agree.
And also, I don't agree that it's any easier to press when they've got 10, because you still press from the front. So if you have, you're going to leave, the press is going to work in exactly the same way, because and also it wasn't a defender that they had sent off, so they still had a back four.
Yeah.
They still had the goalkeeper. Yeah. They still had 2 in midfield.
They still had the possibility to play it out short. And
Alisson, I've never seen Alisson he kicked the ball out of play, I think 3 times, certainly twice, and that was because of us. So just wanted to top and tail the game with some lovely statistics.
Basically, we're good.
Yeah.
But my friend who's a Liverpool fan, wouldn't countenance the fact that they could have lost that game before the game. After 20 minutes, I texted him and said, "We're good, aren't we?" I said, "I don't think we necessarily win this game, but we're because he hasn't watched much Tottenham." I said, "We're good." He goes, "Easy, Tiger." And I'm thinking, are you mad? Look at the way we played in that first 20 minutes. Some of the passing and the interplay between Maddison and Bissouma and Sa in the middle of midfield, I just thought it was breathtaking.
Yeah, you're right. But again, going back to this point about the press and the aggression that we have in the way that we play. I think of the Jota sending off was purely from being mugged off by being pressed by Udogie. The goal that we scored against
Sheffield United and Burnley has come from him.
Burnley, from his press.
Similar.
From him winning the ball.
The winner against Sheffield United was...
And the goal against Burnley when he's won it out on the wing and he's given it to Maddison, who's bent it in. It is about... The team is pressing from the back, right high up the pitch. And it is relentless. And I think those stats from Alisson are something that people perhaps should pay more attention to, because it's clear that he didn't have the passing channels perhaps that he's used to, and he felt under pressure because he couldn't see what the ball was, you know. So
the other thing that's encouraging in a way is that my big fear from day one of this season is that because of the way he gets our fullbacks to tuck in, is that we're going to be vulnerable out wide. And obviously Liverpool with Diaz and Salah, they are 2 of the best and quickest in the business at being able to try and counteract that. And for while they were down to 11 men, while they had 11 men.
You mean the ref counted as one?
Right, yeah, exactly. We managed to negate
4.
that.
No, that joke got lost.
3.5.
3.5.
3.5. I just think that we managing to negate that in that opening period was very positive. And going forward, we're not going to come up against too many sides who have got that kind of quality.
And I remember saying this early on, the players we've bought, and it's why Eric Dyer's not on the team, they're recovery players. They're all good players, don't get me wrong.
Quick Van de Ven is.
Van de Ven quick, Porro quick, Udogie quick, Romero he's quick. There was some of the recovery defending on Saturday when Liverpool broke was incredible. Porro did it. Van de Ven did it in the first half. Bissouma did it on the second half against Salah, who I thought was brilliant, by the way, Salah, but we're not here to talk about them anymore. Look, it's all going in the right direction, but as we've said, and as the opposing fans are waiting to happen, is it all falls apart. And who knows, it could fall apart. Our next opponents, Luton on Saturday. They actually, nice picture of them getting their first win on Saturday at Everton, which didn't go well in my house with my Everton supporting wife, but there you go. They've picked up a little bit of form. They play tonight, Tuesday night, against Burnley. But before we talk about Saturday's early kickoff, let's get the expert opinion of a Luton fan. Delighted to be joined by broadcaster and Luton fan Faye Carruthers. Faye, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So I was thinking about former Luton Spurs games in my memory, trying to get a recollection of playing each other. I was thinking about the late 80s, early 90s, but actually my most recent memory of Luton was working on a National League game on New Year's Day 2014 against Barnet. Absolute bog of a pitch. The game would have been called off had it not been on the TV. 9 years later, you're in the Premier League. Just give us a sense, if you will, of that journey from the 5th tier into the top tier.
I mean, it sounds like not a long amount of time, 9 years, but it feels a lot longer than that, I can tell you. Because, of course, we were down in the what is now National League, was Blue Square Premier when we were down there for 5 years, having, had that ridiculous 30-point deduction in the first place and literally plummeted down the league. So it feels much longer from a Luton fan's perspective to kind of climb up and get back to the Premier League. And I remember our CEO Gary Sweet saying when we were in the National League, there is no reason whatsoever Luton Town can't be a Premier League side, and so many people scoffing about it. Wow. But what we've done is shows how a properly run football club can operate under a small budget if things are done properly. And I'm so proud of my club for doing that. But, we had a great time down in the National League, actually. Loved going to those boggy pitches. There was just like a kind of siege mentality about it. It was brilliant. And, had some of my most fun Luton experiences down there. It's been brilliant to get back to where we belong. And, a lot of people will think that it's a shock that we got promoted last season. It wasn't at all. If you'd have seen our season before, and bar one season, we've actually just, incrementally improved. And that's because of what goes on behind the scenes.
That's really interesting. I'm really pleased you mentioned Gary Sweet and what happens at a properly run club, because my question was going to be, I've seen some criticism levied at Luton about only 20 million spent in the summer, and were they doing enough to give themselves the best opportunity of staying in the Premier League? Now, I sort of take the view that I kind of respect Luton for not financially crippling themselves and bankrupting themselves to take that risk. But from a fan's point of view, you're in the Premier League now. Is it a bit frustrating that more wasn't spent to try and give yourself, or do you sort of understand the situation of the club and admire and respect the decisions that have been taken?
Yeah, I'm proud of the club for the way they've built a team that can be successful in the Premier League, but also be competitive and potentially get us back up if we were to get relegated. I think that's smart business. You've seen the likes of Stoke, other big teams go down, really struggle. We've done things sensibly because this is a long-term project. It's not just, throw everything at being in the Premier League and, win or bust. Yeah. This is about the longevity of this football club, and that's really vital. And I don't think enough focus goes on that in the pyramid nowadays. And the fact that my club has recognised that, there's more important things to do going off the pitch that needs to be concentrated on, that money needs to be directed to. And, I'm not being funny. We've got 4 points on the board already. Yeah. Nobody can say. And the other criticism that I've seen levelled at us is, some of the things, the comments themselves are a joke. The word joke was used within them, and I don't even want to give them credence, to be honest. But, that's somebody that's not watched football, that's not watched Luton Town, that's not watched 90 minutes over the course of a season, maybe not even watched highlights of us, to be honest. So don't really have a lot of respect for those kind of comments. And you can easily, judge as an outsider looking in, but knowing the club from the inside, what they're doing is really sensible. And I would say the majority of Luton fans, if not all Luton fans, 100% back the board with what they're doing by not splashing cash. It's not necessary.
Yeah. And of course, it was always going to be almost likely to be a slow start, and Brighton and Chelsea first couple of games doesn't help. But it sort of from the outside maybe feels like with the last couple of games, it maybe getting to grips with things. I'm not going to say has it turned around, but does it feel like suddenly actually maybe there is a slight sort of shifting in the feeling of the way maybe the season could go?
I think most Luton fans have been quite optimistic and realistic about the way the season's going to go. We know it's going to be difficult. We know we're going to, struggle and not win as many games as we did in the Championship. That's a given. It's a very different level of football. I think we were naive in the Brighton game, but actually we were in it for 71 minutes. People tend to forget that. And again, in the Chelsea game, that was Raheem Sterling deciding to turn up. He was unplayable in that game. But if you look at Chelsea, actually, I wish we'd have, that they were there for the taking, really. And actually, we played well in spells of that game. But again, a few mistakes in midfield and, not quite clicking. But again, it was an improvement from the opening game against Brighton. And then since then, we were unlucky not to take anything against West Ham. Should have potentially had a penalty towards the end of the game and got a point out of that. Against Wolves as well, we were, the superior team for sure, and frustrating not to get the win. And then against Everton, 2 brilliant set pieces, and there we go, we get the 3 points. And that kind of momentum is really important. And Rob Edwards has talked a lot about how they've improved game on game, and that's really important. If we'd have seen a dip in levels, that there'd be something to worry about, but we've not. We've seen the players getting used to the league, getting used to each other, because there's been quite a lot of churn. So actually, I think we're in a really good place, and I'm looking forward. I'm heading off to Burnley. I know that this is previewing Spurs on the weekend, but I'm heading off to Burnley tonight, and I'm quite looking forward to seeing what we can do against them.
Yeah, and as I said at the top, it's been a while since we faced Luton. I remember a game, I think early 90s. Luton had 9 men at the end, which is quite apt after the weekend. Spurs had 1 sent off, I think, and Luton had 2 sent off. We came out also, I think, I don't think that was Guy Butters. I think that was against Wimbledon, possibly against Wimbledon, but it was certainly late 80s, early 90s. We won 2-1. And as you said, you got the Burnley game to get past tonight. But how do you see the weekend going?
I mean, I think what you're doing under Ange Postecoglou is really exciting. I've got a soft spot for Spurs, always have done. I covered them a lot when I worked for Premier League Productions. And, for you guys to have a manager in there that you seem to all fully buy into, who's got the kind of personality that wins everybody over, playing a brand of football that's winning people over after, a couple of pretty turgid, seasons.
No, absolutely right. Dig, go on, say it.
It's going to be a really fascinating matchup, actually, and you've got some incredible players. I mean, I think James Maddison is just wonderful, and Heung-min Son's one of my favourite players in the Premier League. So, you've got brilliant attackers that can do us some real damage. But equally, I think coming to Kenilworth Road, and a lot has been made about our home record potentially, and actually our home and away records are pretty even in the Championship last season, but obviously Kenilworth Road is going to be a massive bonus point for us, and I just don't really see any of the Spurs players struggling with that. I think a lot is made of no one's going to want to go to Luton, really tight pitch, etc. But you have to do that in cup games, so it's not as if you don't go to smaller grounds and have to play, but it is going to be much harder than playing at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium for sure. It's you're only going to have a small pocket of fans of around 1,000 or so, that's going to be difficult. You will get drowned out completely, and that's going to hopefully push us over the line, but I think it's going to be a really tough competitive game. I hope so anyway.
Faye, I can't not let this moment pass without talking about the Spurs women's team. I watched the game on Sunday against Chelsea, and they were excellent, and it seems, I know it's only a game in, but actually that's going to change too. The way the ladies are going to play too is going to change. How do you see their season panning out? I know it's only been a game.
Yeah, I think they're playing a totally different style of football. They had backs against the wall at the end of last season. It was all about survival, so they couldn't really do anything, but they're certainly playing much more on the front foot. And you saw the implementation. They pushed Chelsea all the way at Stamford Bridge in not a hostile atmosphere, but any Tottenham side going to Stamford Bridge is not fun, is it? But I think that they're going to be fine this season. It's a really different style of football than they're used to. You know, they had to defend so deeply last season in order to secure their WSL status. I think this is going to be a more attacking Tottenham side that we see, and you know, there's some brilliant stars to unleash. I just hope that Bethany England, for your sake, isn't out for too long after her hip surgery and can come back soon. But yeah, I think you're going to have a decent season.
Hope so. Okay, and just quickly back to Saturday. Quick prediction, please.
Oh gosh! I mean, I never go against my team, so I'm going to say a 2-1 win to Luton.
Oh, good luck.
I think we're going to grab it at the death.
We've got to lose at some point. And it could be Saturday. Faye, thanks so much for joining us, talking to us about Spurs and Luton as well. Really great to talk to you.
Cheers, Faye. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Cheers, Faye. Great to talk to Faye, who is positive about what's happening, and they've had a right old journey, haven't they? 10 years ago, arguably our journey was starting 10 years ago with Pochettino, but very different. It's every game we go into, obviously the pessimistic Spurs fan stays with me. I'm like, oh God, is it all going to fall apart against Luton? If it falls apart against Luton, they're all going to laugh at us again. Jake, is it going to fall apart against Luton?
Well, it's funny because as soon as I think of Luton last week, after the Liverpool game, my mind immediately turned to Luton, and I'm thinking, Luton away, early kickoff, small pitch. It's going to be a tough one.
Faye said that won't matter.
Yeah, but I just think that if you look, you know, I said it's not going to happen again, but you look at the sort of 9-men situation we had, you look at the Sheffield United game, you know what Luton are going to try and do. They're very good at set pieces, but they I don't think it's unfair of me to say they would be happy with a 0-0 in this game.
Well, any draw.
Yeah, but they're gonna obviously. If we go a goal up, then it becomes a problem for them. If they score early, or if they can keep it tight for the first half, 50, 60 minutes, I think it's going to be tricky for us because that is maybe the one area. I mean, listen, every team's going to struggle when you've got a low block on a tight pitch. It doesn't matter how creative you are. It doesn't matter Maddison, Son, Bissouma, these guys. If they make it tight in the centre of the pitch, which they will, and they will probably play with back four, maybe put 5 at the back, I think it's going to be difficult. But I'm not going to go into this game. Thinking anything negative. I still think we'll win. I think it could be difficult.
I'll get your prediction in a minute. Gary, is it all going to fall apart on Saturday? It's not, is it?
No.
I'm just prodding.
I don't think so. I agree very much with what Jake's saying. I think I would be more concerned going to Kenilworth Road than I was going to Turf Moor, because Luton will sit in, and where we have struggled is against 9-men Liverpool sitting in, against Sheffield United sitting in, and it is always going to be hard. And we need to find, I think, the next evolution of the Spurs team, or something that we could improve immediately. If I could choose one thing, it would be how to break down a lower block a bit better.
I'm sure Ange's thinking that.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I'm sure he is, and I agree with Jake. If they've got Morris up front, he's a real handful. He's a real handful. You shouldn't underestimate that they've got good players. And the worst thing we could do would be to go into this game and underestimate any of it. If we were to go a goal down, I agree, it would become a really tense, difficult match. The best thing we could do is go there, and I mentioned earlier we started slowly in a lot of games. So the first 20 minutes that Liverpool slightly showed, it didn't bother me too much because I thought we'd grow into it. I don't think we can afford to do that against Luton. We did it against Burnley. We went a goal down. Yeah. We really can't afford to do it against a team like Luton. And I think we need to go there. We need to get out the blocks quick, get an early goal. And if we were to get that early goal, I think we could go on and win very, very comfortably.
I've seen some people refer to them, even though they're in the Premier League, as a championship side. Well, being away to a championship side has done us absolutely no favours in recent years.
Yeah, it's funny. Faye was talking about, it shouldn't bother Spurs to come to a smaller ground and a very intimate packed ground and a smaller pitch. And I was thinking, I was tempted to interrupt her and say, well, actually, when we've gone to clubs like that in the past, we've really fallen flat on our arse. So,
The only thing we've scored 2 goals minimum in every game this season. Yeah. I don't see that coming to an end in this game. Luton have conceded in every game so far this season. I don't see that coming to an end this season.
No, on every metric we should beat them, but it's just not a game. You can't take any Premier League game, particularly one away from home, and say categorical. But on every metric we should beat them. There is a possibility that we balls it up. I don't see it.
Before I get your predictions, I did a rare thing last week. Do you know what that was? No.
You don't want the answer.
I do not want
This
to
is a family
in the
show, Gary.
on the confines of this studio with you two people sat in it. I did a rare thing last week. Do you know what it was? I predicted a Spurs win, and I have the proof. Watch the screen.
I think we're going to beat them 2-1.
Oof.
I really do. There's a real feel-good factor, and we've had 2 home games. The fans have been buzzing to get back in the ground. The atmosphere is going to be really, really good.
No, I predicted the atmosphere was going to be really, really good, and it was. And I predicted a 2-1 win.
Hark at you.
I know.
Nice to see you changed.
I know, mate. So 1-1. Gobbin them. Prediction for Saturday. Gary.
I am going to go with 4-1 Tottenham.
3-1 Tottenham.
2-0 Tottenham.
Clean sheet alert. Why not?
Yeah, it's about time. So
sorry, Faye.
that would take us into the international break. You always want to go into the international break on the back of a win, don't you?
By the way, a lot of the teams around us play each other this weekend, so it's a huge opportunity.
We do have a bit of a history of when we could go top,
not taking advantage.
I remember a game against Bolton. I think in the 90s, Naeem was there. I think we were beating Bolton. They put Naeem on the screen on the big old jumbotron, and we were all singing Naeem from the halfway line. And then Bolton equalised, and we didn't go top. So these memories stick with you. Tottenham will never leave you. Okay, so good. 3 points on Saturday on the back of 3 points last Saturday. Let's hope, gentlemen. Thank you as always for your jokes.
That's what I'm here for. That's what I do.
And your insights.
Got any more for us before we go?
Absolutely not. No, I'm done. Run the well dry here.
Gentlemen, we will see you next week. And up the Spurs.